This term diversity that we hear so much about, look, fair enough, when we're making laws for a group of people that have many cultures or two different genders or whatever it is, yeah, fair enough, just one person's point of view. I think we're all sold that we need many perspectives on what justice is, or what people think the good is, or what people find pleasurable or unpleasurable, and then we should try and make laws for everyone, right? But surely you must agree with me that the one area that we can all agree that cultural or gender differences plays no part in is mathematics, and maybe you extend that out into science. But you'd be wrong, because take a look at this stupid shit. Now, this is from a couple of months ago. I've been meaning to make a video on this for a while. I've only just got around to it. But check out what plays out here. A straight question about science gets asked to a white guy who gives a great answer, pure science answer. Then they throw it like a 25-year-old female, indigenous female, who I've got no problem with. Good luck to her. She's doing great. I think she should keep doing what she's doing because she does it well. But it was a hospital handball, and you can see the way that the questioner tries to, as she gives initially a good answer, tries to turn her away from giving a standard normal science math sort of answer, and forces her into the more estrogen-soaked emotional side of beauty and spirituality and things you can't quite define when she's a damn scientist. For what it's worth, this lady's, I think, 25 years old when this happens, and she's got a bachelor degree from university in astronomy. But anyway, let's watch the question, and then I'll come back and then we'll have a look at the answer.
Science is all about questioning the nature of reality, and in doing so, uncovering truths. With politicians like Donald Trump inciting a riot over election fraud, and Vladimir Putin rationalising a deadly conflict in Ukraine, we cannot help but think that politicians obscure reality and reformulate truths to suit their narrative. Would it be fair to say that politics has become anti-science? And if so, what is the future of science in politics?
So I disagree with the question a bit. He's saying science explains reality. Science explains the physical reality. Science doesn't explain our values, love and fear and hope and whatever else is going on out there. So this young male thinks that science is the be-all and end-all. And anyway, we have a string physicist to give us a sort of answer, which he clarifies at the very end, and I don't think I included in this, that he does agree that there are some things outside the physical reality, but initially he does a pretty good job at just saying science can always agree, science and maths can always agree, and will eventually come to an agreement on everything, and like in brackets, in the physical realm. Let's go.
Brian.
Well, I think it's the case that politicians have twisted reality to bend to whatever image that they have of the world and to suit their particular needs. Been doing that, for 5,000 years. So it's nothing new.
This is something as well coming from someone who deals with multiple realities. And you're talking about superstring theory with multiple dimensions and different ideas of time.
See how keen Stan is to make this guy seem as though he's like Albert Einstein come again in a very science-based context. We'll keep going now.
Those crazy-sounding ideas emerge from the most rational analysis of basic mathematical equations that have been developed to describe our most precise observations and experiments about the world.
See, that's important, that part of the answer. He rightly says that science isn't about aesthetics and it isn't about spirituality. It isn't about winning elections, and it isn't about making one thing more beautiful than another. He's trying to get to the point that this is just hard science.
Well, it's an interesting question, isn't it? Because it goes to the idea of if this is what we're hearing in politics and the way truth is bent, what does it say about respect for science? Because we saw this during COVID, didn't we?
Oh my
the respect
God.
for science,
Yeah.
the respect for truth. What impact is that having on our community when it comes to understanding and respecting science?
And there again, importantly, Stan makes the initially good point that we should be trying to arrive at a single solution, at least in the scientific realm. And what are the outcomes for, say, he used COVID, but when we start saying, well, let's have a different perspective, different perspective on science. Well, that's your perspective on whether vaccines work, but there's only one right one, and that's the scientist, okay? Keep that in mind when you see the rest of this question, okay? And I posit to you that that's the answer that we're all hoping for, that science isn't going to say, here, give us trillions of dollars of funding, we'll give you 5 different answers, and you pick your own one, because I could have done that on my own. I want science to give me one answer, and then I can take that answer and choose whether to act on it or not, like get a vaccine or not. Anyway, we'll keep going. Check out this next bit.
They're not concocted out of a twisted imagination, and we don't build these ideas for some end beyond trying to understand the world at its deepest possible level. But, the bottom line is that the power of science is that it does transcend these momentary hurdles, these momentary blips, right? I mean, science will ultimately win out. There will be hurdles now and then. There will be people who try to block it, but the truth will win, and observation will win, and experiment will win, and mathematics will lead us to a deeper truth.
So there you go. A physicist gives us a really great answer on pure science. But then, unfortunately, Grant throws to a very intelligent person who was brave to come on the show. She happens to be female and Aborigine. Okay.
Kirsten, how do we get there?
Well, the thing about the world that we live in at the moment is that information is so easy to access. Whether that information is correct is another question, right? You go into TikTok, right? You go into YouTube, you go into any of the social media platforms, people are there sharing information, whether it's correct or not, whether they understand it or not, and that's okay. Sharing information is a really powerful thing. It's just when we start with the conclusion and cherry pick our data and evidence to suit that conclusion is where we get this problem. And that's where, science comes in, and it's much more fun to figure out the answer along the way.
I'm just wondering too, as a First Nations person, a Wiradjuri person.
Okay, so she gave a really good answer. Yes, it's very easy to have your own personal bias on what your conclusion you want is, and then reverse engineer, cherry picking your facts all the way back to the question that would lead to your answer. Start with the question, get the answer, and say, hey, I'm right. And that's exactly how the world works, and I think she's very astute. But did you see the question that wouldn't let her have it? He talked over her, he butt in, and watch where he pushes, where he wants to go with this, because it's her.
Operating in science that we know comes with its own politics, comes out of its own history. Which science, whose voices are heard? As a woman, as a Wiradjuri woman, what do you bring to science that, for want of a better phrase, the old white male scientist may not? Are there different ways of seeing truth and accessing truth through science?
Absolutely.
Oh my God, I would have been so much happier if she'd said, no, there's just one science. It's got nothing to do with me being female. It's got nothing to do with Aborigine. The speed of light is what it is. 1 + 1 = 2. There are no different perspectives on that. But she goes, absolutely. And then she just, I don't know where she's going with this. And like I'm saying, this is the problem with diversity. The one area it doesn't work is maths and science, right? Here's a maths and science question. And the white guy gave the answer first, and she's just got to come on. And all she can do is just give the same correct answer in this field. This isn't art, man. This isn't ethics. This isn't meta-ethics. This is hard, as Aristotle would say, physics. But anyway, let's watch it go.
And I think the important thing is not just you have the old white males and then you have me. It's like you have all perspectives in science. And I think that's where we need to engage in more people's understandings and perspectives.
Okay, so I'm giving some credit there. She didn't just go, stale males are the enemy and everyone else. She's saying we're all different, and she didn't just go there's right and wrong. She tried to point out that there were, even though Stan was trying to say, oh, we're sick of white men, she was trying to say, hey, there's lots of different people looking around. So good luck to her. That was really great. But the answer will go on here. And again, I have the same problem that I said at the beginning.
I think that's what I really enjoy to do with what I do about talking about science and sharing my passion for science, is taking it from the Western science that I have learned through school, through university, but also through the beautiful Wiradjuri astronomy that we've learned from elders and from people who are working in that space too, learning the language too. And
Eesh, did she just say Western science? So 1 + 1 = 2 and the speed of light, that's just Westerners, right? You only learn that in university? Surely the Muslims in Islam's heyday, in the 1200s and stuff. I mean, there were 2 brothers that stood in the Sahara Desert and accurately predicted the circumference of the world. Surely that's Western as well. So if 1 + 1 = 2 is Western science, what is the Aborigine perspective on 1 + 1 = 2? I hope it's 2 as well. And if it's the same answer, why differentiate? I'm not interested in people's perspectives on 1 + 1 = 2. We can have that afterwards, but that isn't science.
How do you marry the spiritual and the scientific?
well, to be honest, when it comes to Wiradjuri astronomy, they go hand in hand.
Oh God, abort, get out of there. The spiritual is the spiritual because it cannot be publicly verified, right? Read A.J. Ayer. We have struggled for centuries to keep the church out of what science is. A lot of people got burned at the stake so we could have the church and the spiritual realm out of science. But is it creeping back in here, and is it blindsiding us through our sense of compassion and sympathy for someone who might have had a heart for 1,000 years? she's doing herself any favors saying, hey, vote for a non-white female and you'll get what, the church back in science? No, thank you.
The way that Biami, which for those who may not know, it's also the stars of Orion, is a more common constellation that we all generally tend to know. The way that it sets in the night sky from our perspective here in Australia matches the stories that we learn about Biami. That's beautiful.
No, science isn't beautiful. Science is or it isn't. It can be proved publicly or it can't. We can accept the theory as explaining what we see and what we can measure, or we can't. Beautiful, damn. I mean, some guys are tits men, some guys are ass men. You know, some chicks like a rich guy, some chicks like a muscly guy. Some people think that a melting clock is art, some people don't. I really don't want to bring beauty and aesthetics into science. Why are we doing this? Why is she doing this? Okay, she proved the point that we said Orion, which is like the hunter with a belt or something like that, and she has Biami, which is a different word, but it's the same constellation. It's merely nomenclature here. This isn't science. This is really going downhill.
It's intertwined. I don't think there really should be this spirituality, science separate.
And I could not disagree with you any more on that. I'm certain that when she watches this back, she'll think, what did I just say? Science and spirituality shouldn't be separated? Yeah, they should. For what it's worth, how this ends is that they throw back to the physicist, and he very politically correctly and very gently repairs this by saying, no, we should have science for measuring the speed of an electron or something like that. Anyway, my point is, I've watched Q&A. I don't watch it anymore, it's terrible, but I've watched it so many times. There is a preponderance of, for instance, this lady's 25 years old. There is a preponderance of 25-year-olds on there trying to not match minds, but speak after 60-year-olds. It's always a female that's 25. It's always a man that's 60. It's unfair. The cards are stacked against these women that go on there. And they particularly Stan Grant, but a lot of these presenters always try and burden the non-white person with the cultural relativism, which the postmodernism, which I've gone all the way to the end of, suffered the depression that comes at the end of postmodernism, like everyone does, repaired myself, and they're polarizing society between like truth and science and right answers, white people or males, and fluffy hocus pocus black magic shit, excuse the puns, with the non-white people and the females out there. I can see them doing it, and as soon as I try and say something, it's sexist or racist to do it. I hope someone else has noticed this, and I hope someone else has taken action, or this is going to end badly. Anyway, that's the end of this video. I'll see you in the next one, which I'll have out shortly, and thanks for watching, guys.